In the gym and in the car, with our advice you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes, and talk about our sexy dates. We host events and go to clubs, but most of all we're still in love. It's getting hard for this to rhyme, just as well, 'cause it's bed hopping time. Hello and welcome to the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name's Mr. H.
I am Mrs. H.
Thank you for joining us today. We are going to go straight into it. No promotion, no nonsense, no talking about any other thing that we're doing. We're going to get straight on to the topic of today.
Really?
Yes. You might go, thank fuck for that. One episode where they're not promoting something. And yes, we understand, but we want to get straight into it.
We do?
We do want to get straight, balls deep.
You going to buy me a drink first?
No, I'm not even going to spit on you. I'm not going to give you the old hock-to. I'm going to go straight for it.
Wow, okay. Going in dry? Cool. Off we go then.
Well, so the reason for this topic, it's cropped up quite a lot recently, and that we've been asked by a number of people. I mean, I say number, like 3, maybe even 4 at a push.
Single digits.
Yeah, single digits. Like, how do we get into the lifestyle? And that's come up quite a lot, particularly because we've been to a couple of socials recently and people have been asking us that, and that's the standard go-to question. So we thought we'd do a podcast on it, and then we could just play the podcast them if they ask us while we're out and about. Really simple. Like, and you know, I wouldn't want to force episode 1 on anybody. You know, maybe I've listened to it 2 or 3 times.
Oh, if you had to.
Yeah, but that's only because I've had to upload it a couple of times.
So is this you like remastering?
No, this isn't like a special edition. This is like a reboot, perhaps. A soft, gentle reboot before we bring the whole thing down in tears.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're going to answer that question, like, how do we get into the lifestyle? But there's a follow-up question.
Ooh.
Yeah, follow-up question. And I know, gentle listener, that you're well excited about this topic. We've also been asked, like, what's changed since we've been in the lifestyle? Not only about, you know, us, like how we changed and our rules and the way we communicate and all that sort of stuff, but also how has the scene changed? Because we started doing this. When did we start doing it, wife?
November 2016.
Yeah.
So 8 years ago?
About 8 years ago. And we started thinking about it around about this time. This is when it all sort of cropped up.
Yeah, that's probably accurate.
This time 8 years ago, I was 8 years younger, but I was also in like full research mode, looking at, you know, how the hell do we get into this lifestyle? How's it going to go? But we thought we'd cover a little bit about our beginnings.
Yeah.
And if you've heard that too many times already, well, it's tough luck. You know, it's one of those things that...
Oh, this is like Batman, right? You keep doing the origin story again.
Yeah, you just keep doing it again and again. Watch as the parents get shot in the alleyway and how you... spoilers for Batman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like Superman, I guess they keep doing the origin story. Like all superheroes really get an origin story. This is ours, told again, but hopefully with a level of brevity so you don't have to sit there impatiently. And you might be curious, so you might have gone, fuck that, I'm not going all the way back to the beginning of this podcast to listen to it.
It's like different, isn't it? Because we're doing it better.
Yes, in theory, better. So way back in those times, in the dark times, 8 years ago, we were going through a lot of things, actually. At this point, my mum was sadly dying of cancer.
She was.
That was on the cards, sadly. We were travelling up and down the country to see her every weekend. We'd been on holiday and had this interaction with this couple.
Yeah.
Now, this interaction, and we've mentioned this before, but we went to where?
Fuerteventura.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Fuerteventura. Oh, my. So we went there and it was an adults-only hotel. Yeah. Not a naughty hotel, but a hotel where...
no kids are allowed.
Yeah, no children are permitted, which sounds like the dream hotel most times, I think.
Yeah.
Unless you're taking your kids on holiday and they have to wait outside.
But not like a hedonism type thing.
No.
Just more of a quiet adult place.
Yeah, where you could get your drinks without kids running around all over the place. Anyway, we were watching this couple that were there, and they were giving each other a rub down with sun cream, the likes of which we ain't not seen before, right?
Yeah, but we were quite naive, I think, because we kept saying silly things to each other like, "Oh, I bet they're swingers."
Well, at this point as well...
We didn't even know what swingers were.
Well, we
not like that.
We'd had a little bit in that we'd watched a little bit of Playboy Swing at this point. And the reason that had come up is because we'd watched a few documentaries with sex in them, like the polyamory series that we've mentioned before in the show.
and we'd found our way over to the Playboy swing thing, and we'd watched a few episodes of that. And so we had this rough starting to form picture of what swingers might be. But these folks looked like they were all over each other, like they were absolutely on heat with, and whilst they weren't like fucking, they were like eye fucking each other and massaging each other to the nth degree. So we were there joking to ourselves, look at the swingers.
I know, and thinking back, that was actually a really crude observation on our part, because we now do...
Are swingers?
Well, not only that, but we would probably raise an eyebrow if we heard comments like that and go, oh, how uneducated of you to assume that just because people are overtly sexual in public, it means they're swingers.
Yeah.
But, you make these crude observations because lack of education on the subject.
Makes an arse out of you and me. Anyways, so we observed this behaviour, and one day while we were at the holiday place in the hotel in it, we'd come back from a long walk and we were grabbing a drink, and they caught up with us and said hello.
They just came over and said, hey, can we join you for a drink?
Yeah. And the irony is that they'd only met each other the previous week at a work retreat and decided that they would go on holiday together.
I wonder if they're together still.
No, I really don't think there was any chance. I don't think they were going to last the holiday. So
okay.
We had some drinks with them.
Yeah.
And then we had some more drinks with them.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And then we had some more drinks with them.
We had all the drinks with them.
We went for a meal and all this kind of thing. And we were getting to know them better. And they were really, really sort of fascinating people.
It was quite interesting because we were like, who are these people? And it was interesting to hear how they got together and what they were doing on this holiday. And it started to form a kind of, I suppose, a picture of why they were so overt with their affection, because they were so into each other, because they were so
they'd
new.
met each other like 8 minutes ago and decided for some random reason to go on holiday. Absolutely fine. But what he hadn't noticed or quite figured out yet is what she was like when she had a drink. And this was a complete shock to him, because she was quite forward, shall we say, for want of a better phrase. At one stage, I sort of went to the bathroom, as one does, and as I sort of bumped into her on the way back, she tried to make out with me.
My goodness.
And like the Jedi that I am, how things have changed. Maybe that's something that we need to cover later on. I was like, no, we are.
You were aghast.
Yeah, I'm married. We can't do this kind of thing. This is terrible. Anyway, went back. Didn't really do much of it, because I thought, she's just probably drunk, whatever.
And you were also a bit drunk by this point, probably.
Yes,
we all were.
Well, holiday drunk, which is even better than regular drunk. And we ended up in this terrible disco thing that was on the resort. In the resort, that only had like 3 songs or 4 songs programmed into it. I don't think it was supposed to be open that night.
And not really anyone else in there.
No, just the 4 of us and maybe 1 or 2 others. Anyway, turn around and you're making out with her.
Well, that's not strictly true. You didn't just turn around and I was making out with her. We went to the dance floor and we were having a little dance. And I think you might have been sitting down talking to him. And she then kind of came onto me on the dance floor and sort of pressed me up against a wall and kissed me.
And then I turned around.
And then you turned around.
Oh, okay. So,
but that's what actually happened.
All right.
It wasn't just a random, let's go on the dance floor and kiss. That's what actually happened.
Okay. But for the swiftness,
and I was taken by surprise.
Yes.
But I did reciprocate.
Did not fight her off with a shitty stick, did you?
I reciprocated because I was also a few sheets to the wind. And I was having a bit of a good time. And, you just get carried away with the holiday, flirty, drunken fun.
You and a sexy lady kissing you. It's like fucking, it just.
And it wasn't my first rodeo. I wasn't like a stranger to women kissing me.
No,
I was like,
I know.
hey, I remember this.
You remember this. This is fun. At which point it triggered a huge argument
and it all
for us,
kicked
right?
off. Yes, it did.
And
you went over to her and said, oh, you kissing my wife? And you thought, yeah, I was a little bit.
yeah.
Like, what of it?
And then we had this huge row.
We did.
Kind of about the whole thing, about rules, because I'm very rule focused.
I know.
I like chaos within the defined rules.
But, at this point, we didn't have any rules other than we were married and you shouldn't dick around when you're married, right?
Which is a fair thing. And you broke that rule.
I did break that rule, but it was in front of you. It wasn't.
That doesn't make it any...
I remember being at the time like, yeah, but I didn't go somewhere else and do it.
Yes, I remember that being part of your argument.
It was in front of you. You could have joined in. Anyway, this is what happened. It descended into madness.
Exactly.
Because this is how we both clearly had very different opinions on what had happened. And I saw it as an opportunity. We could have all done something.
We knew what had happened. There was no discrepancy around what you'd actually done. It was just your ability to try and slip out of it being something that was upsetting for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you couldn't do that. And
Couldn't,
hence
no.
the argument. So we talked through and then we kind of worked out, well, actually, you wanted to explore playing with women. And that
Yeah.
really set the seeds of my research phase off. Cue a number of weeks, months later, when we're back in the UK. I mean, we're actually back in the UK after a few days, but, a bit of time has passed. We're now, on the way up and down to see my mum as she's going. And one of the things that really starts to sort of dawn on us is this, I'm starting to do some research and looking into non-monogamy and what that's about and how that might work for us, if it might work for us, if I am mature enough to handle it, I think is probably the best phrase of all. And we have a lot of time because going down to see my mum as she's on the way out, she's like 3.5 hours journey away was. And that's a lot of car time for the two of us.
Yeah, a lot of time alone.
And it gave us a real opportunity to have really deep, valuable conversations, also against the backdrop of my mum was an absolute free spirit. And really, I think she loved to travel. She loved to go to different places and she didn't like to waste a minute. She liked to get out there and do things.
Have an adventure.
Yeah. And knowing that she was going, and when she did actually go, it really spurred us on to get into a space where we shouldn't live with regrets for too long. We didn't want to get to the end of our own lives and look back and go, you know what would have been fun? Is if we'd have had some of that sexy time with other people.
And maybe opened up, what we have together and made it better, maybe.
Yeah, might have made it worse though.
Could have made it worse.
Yeah.
But it was
Roll the
also absolutely a 50-50 chance it could have made it better. Especially with the careful approach you then took to all the research to do it in a good way and a sensible way so that we were communicating all the way along.
So when my mum finally went, we kind of used that as a bit of a springboard to let's live some life and make the most of things. And, we kind of figured where we wanted to go or what we wanted to do was have some fun or try and experience having a threesome with another lady, because you were really keen on playing with another lady. And I was also happy to play with another lady, but we were both kind of worried about it, right?
Yeah, we were both concerned because our relationship remained of paramount priority to the both of us, rightly so. And we'd been together a long time by this point, even longer now, but we had been together a long time. And I think we were in a great place already with our relationship and a really solid foundation, but we also didn't want to jeopardize that in any way and cause each other hurt. So it was really important to us that we took some baby steps and went into it with right, well, let's try this and see how this feels.
Yeah. And I think given, this is 8 years ago, so we went onto our dial-up system. No, it wasn't that. It was actually, it's like cable modems and stuff were a thing at that point.
Yeah.
Honest, Gov, I
Maybe.
promise you. We went onto the internet and I did lots of research. And it seemed that the most popular or most used site in the UK was Fab Swingers, which I suppose to a certain extent is still true to this day in that it has the most users. Whether it's the most popular, whether it's the most user-friendly or a whole number of other things is another matter entirely. So we went onto Fab Swingers and looked for what we came to understand to be a unicorn.
Created a profile.
Yeah, we did that.
It was only looking for women, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, only looking for women, closed off to men. And I think also, I don't know whether it was closed off to couples or not, but actually within a day or two of being on the site, we were really fortunate and a single lady reached out to us.
And we shit ourselves.
Yeah, we absolutely kecked our loads. And I think it was just the realization that this could actually be a real thing. And this is one of the things that I think we forget as we go on our journey is how fucking scary some of this stuff can be if you let it get to you. And we really sort of danced around the whole thing a bit like, we'll meet you in a pub where there's going to be lots of people and, we need to tell our friends, like, we're going to be in a pub for this time until that time. And if we don't come back before then, we're probably murdered.
But we didn't tell our friends what we were doing.
No, we didn't tell our friends what we were doing.
We were terrified that anyone would find out because we didn't want it to be judged or anything.
No. And also we kind of wanted to kind of chuck ourselves into it a little bit and experience what it was like and sort of really test out some of those waters.
Yeah.
And see if it was something that we might want to pursue in a longer term. And I think, having done the research and having listened to lots of podcasts and stuff like that, I kind of felt there was like a holy land at the other side, like a grail that we could find because I think, we'd lost various friends and people, fallen out of touch with people. And for me, in the back of my head, I was thinking this could be an opportunity to get like a whole new set of friends and people that we can hang with. But also I was like, holy fuck, we've actually got to go and speak to somebody. This is terrifying. So we agreed to meet this single girl in in a pub.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What was that like?
Okay, we were really nervous. We were both terrified, even though we'd already agreed in advance it was just going to be drinks in a neutral pub, not anyone's house, nothing like that. I'm trying to recall actually as well, even pre-meet, did we already set out some rules for ourselves? Do you recall?
I think we just agreed that it was going to be absolutely pure social and that we were going to go there. I was driving, so that meant you were drinking.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we ordered a bottle of Prosecco when we got there. We got there before she did. And it was a quietish country sort of pub with some kind of, discreet tucked away tables. And yes, he bought a bottle of Prosecco and I immediately...
I think that thing was gone.
Neck to glass.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't quite that bad, but I definitely did feel nervous. And I'm trying to remember what was so nerve-wracking. I think it was just the fact that we were doing something that wasn't within the realms of our previously very orthodox marriage boundaries, which is, i.e. you and I, and that's it.
Well, I think we went in with the mind of safety for our partnership at the core of everything, and we still do. But actually, we were like really protective of that. And it was kind of like, okay, we don't, it was like, oh, don't go falling in love with her. And it was almost like,
I think we both said exactly that.
Yeah.
Like, what if you find her really attractive and you want to run away with her? Because that's obviously going to be the first thing that comes into your mind when all you've done is spend your lives together. And then you think, oh shit, now we're actually inviting an opportunity for somebody to find someone else more attractive than me or you. It's really hard not to immediately kind of leap to that conclusion.
It can be. And I think, so we sat down and had this drink with her. And I think what sort of also opened her eyes a lot is that she was like, oh yeah, well I was in this orgy and when I was doing this, not necessarily in a showy way, but it was the casual flippancy of which she was kind of, churning these words out in an open public space. And we're like, holy fuck, people can hear what she's talking about. And indeed, a few of the people did turn around to have a look and see what she was talking about. But also like, holy crap, like how much experience does she have? And, how can we live up to that? What can we bring to the table? All these kind of things were floating into our head.
But it all felt very normal, the way she was talking.
Yeah, it
As you say, you're describing it as flippancy, and I suppose it was looking back because she was just churning out these words. But for her, it was just, oh yeah, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that. And it normalised everything because it was just so... you might as well have said, yeah, I went to the shop.
Yeah.
I played around with golf.
It was. But I think also, she wasn't particularly experienced. Looking back, she was relatively new in her journey as well. But to us, it seemed like some sort of God had descended like down from above or whatever and was like, yes, this is what I was doing last week with these 5,000 people in this orgy.
Oracle, teach me your ways.
Yeah. It was a bit of like, oh my God, this is frightening and terrifying, but intriguing at the same time.
It was intriguing. I do recall we were both sat there with some kind of dark thrill of, oh my God, this is so exciting. We're actually doing this. We're listening to this woman talk about what we could do together and what she's done with other couples and how she liked playing with couples. And she basically made it not weird because she was a normal person with a normal job and lived in a house like normal people. Like, okay, she's normal to all intents and purposes.
Yeah, she was
had
human.
Some quirks maybe, but she was a regular person.
And I think that's where when we left that night, we were both still very nervous because I think it felt not traumatic, but it was kind of like, oh my God, we've done this. We've put our dipped our toes into this much bigger and deeper pool. But also like, oh, this is exciting. We've done something that's a bit naughty and a bit exciting and all this kind of stuff was buzzing around our heads. But also we're like, we're not dead. We've not been murdered. This has been a successful night for us.
Yeah, and we definitely had things to talk about off the back of that because we'd gone on a date. We'd enjoyed it. We'd enjoyed talking to her together and what it could mean for our relationship to do something. And then we went back and talked about it some more.
And I think not long after that, then we started looking at things like socials, of which there weren't very many around. There was only one sort of 10 miles away or so. And then there was 15, 20 miles, I don't know, within a distance. Then eventually we looked at events. Yeah. And then eventually clubs.
Yeah, but it was a very much...
but it was a very slow journey to get to that point because we were just so nervous about every step of the way. And, even couples, in terms of interacting with couples, took a while for us to get into that space and a while to find people that we were both attracted to. So that journey took, I want to say it felt like getting to to a decent space felt like it took like a couple of years.
Probably did.
And finding,
really.
people that we really got on with and connected with, it just felt like we were just constant. We were looking for a promised land, And I honestly, I was like, do we give up? Is this not the thing for us? Because we threw ourselves into meets that were just not right for us. And when we sing, or when I sing on the theme song, that we fuck things up and we make mistakes, that was so true. And it stands true that we still fuck things up and we still make mistakes, hopefully less than we used to. But at the time, in our early years, we just didn't know. There were podcasts, but they were all American, and it felt like a very different, very alien environment. And there weren't really any TV shows other than Playboy Swing, again, an American thing. And the advice from the people that we met they all seemed to be older, hardcore, like rock up and fuck swingers.
I think there was a few impressions I gained early on that told me that maybe I was just being too fussy. And the reason we weren't meeting people is because we weren't going in with more of an open mind and we were looking around at people who were just connecting really easily and hooking up with people, as you say. And I still think back and think, how? Is it because they just don't care as much about the kind of people they want to meet with, or people just not attracted to us? I don't know. And
Columns A and B.
I suspect a lot of it was because we were just intrinsically fussy about for each other. Also you're not going to get turned on by seeing your partner with someone who you think, oh no, why are they with them?
And I think there is something about that period in particular, and we talk about it on the podcast, and we talk about our struggles in terms of finding the right people. It's really hard because it really does give the impression of a level of fussiness. And I think there was like a comment on one of the social medias like, oh my God, when you two revealed your faces, I was like, oh, you're just average. Why were you so fussy?
Oh my God,
and
really?
I'm like, yeah. And I'm like,
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, you've definitely seen. This is going back a while back.
Okay,
and I think
fine.
it's just one of those, the reality is that for us, we had to be attracted to the people, people, both physically and mentally. And we found it really difficult to find people that lit both of those flames for all, for the two of us and for them in reverse. And I think that's where it's been, certainly that early part was a huge struggle.
Yeah. I mean, we're not putting ourselves on such a pedestal that we think we're untouchable and like rock stars by any stretch and going, wow, you can't possibly like hope to hook up with someone as nice as us. It's not that. It's more how we feel about those connections, as you say.
But it was interesting, and we certainly had that feedback along the way, and that's certainly been something that that's developed with us over the course of time. So that was kind of like our intro into this whole thing. As I said, we found socials that really weren't for us, I guess. Like they didn't feel like they were aimed at us in a way that we could experience them. We went to like a limited number of clubs. Some of them were absolutely awful, and it took a while to find good ones. Things like places like Vanilla Alternative took us a long while to muster up the courage to go to it, but also just be able to like find the time to go in the right space and the right frame of mind, and maybe go with people that we know. And hence why so many of these things became so indoctrinated with the way that we talk about the whole lifestyle. Like VA was literally on our podcast intro for a long, long time. And I still think it's a fantastic club. We're going there as part of our takeover really soon. But all of these little things added up to our journey. But what I want to know is, what has changed since then?
Well,
let's talk about, before we go into...
I was going to say, I've got a question first.
All right, go on then. What is your question?
And I think to understand how far we've come and what we do now, how things have changed.
We've come so far. And moved so high.
I think really you need to distill it down to what rules you had in place 8 years ago when we started all this, because actually what we put in place for ourselves back then with rules and boundaries and we couldn't possibly do this and how do you feel about this? Those are some of the things that for me have changed over time, how much we flexed on those areas. So what rules did we have in place 8 years ago? Okay,
8 years ago, it was very much don't do anything separately.
Okay.
It was very much like an eye for an eye. And it's fairness, but that still exists a bit. I think initially we started off playing with ladies, and then we sort of introduced couples.
Yeah.
It was always together, always in the same room.
Yeah.
Until some,
Until
incidents.
the threshold.
The threshold was crossed, as we've talked about before.
The threshold of passion.
The threshold of passion.
We had, did we have a rule of no kissing?
No,
we
never
didn't.
ever started
No,
with
we
a rule
didn't.
of no kissing. And I think both of us felt like
Why
how are
would
you
you do
supposed to get excited if you can't kiss someone? Like, honestly, and to this day, we've said it a number of times. Like, sometimes I could take or leave the sex, but if I've had the kissing, that's like the really sexy bit
But
more
lots
often
of
than not.
people still do have rules like that.
Yeah, but that's that's for them. And I
Yeah.
think, I struggle to, I get the principle behind it. Like, it's very private and yada, yada, yada. But I really struggle when you start applying a level of logic to it.
We had a rule, only soft play from the
Initially,
beginning.
yes.
Initially, we said no full swaps. So full swap being penetrative sex with
Yeah,
other people.
for a long while we were
really
soft play only.
really soft play only, because I think we were scared that progressing to something as sexual as full swap would be catastrophic for us both to cope with. So in our minds it was like a first base, second base, third base kind of incremental levels of debauchery perhaps.
Yeah, and I remember talking about this, and we've differed on that opinion on whether we think
Exactly. Again,
first,
something else that we've really changed our approach on.
Yeah, and I think certainly when we started, that was something that was like a really formative part, certainly for quite a while. And I remember going to events and being soft swap only.
Yeah.
And sort of having to almost like justify that. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I understand why people are, oh, okay, fine. And they weren't awful about it, but I think there was a bit of like, oh, all right. But also I think, our confidence in the lifestyle at that point was sort of not as good as it is now. And not saying that I'm full of confidence, but I didn't feel like anyone actually wanted to fuck me at the point.
Really?
Like, yeah. Like, I was desperately worried that no one wanted to actually, like, okay, soft swap. They were like, all right, fine. But actual sex with me, I didn't feel for a long time like anyone would
Which
want
is
to do that.
interesting, because I remember when we were soft swap only, we occasionally, well, quite a few times, did get asked, oh, can we full swap, or can we have sex? And you were like, no.
Well, one, because we'd agreed that was what the rule was.
Of course we had agreed.
And that my stance on that. I also think it was some of the people that we soft swap with, I didn't want to escalate with, and I didn't feel as though not that they'd earned it. That sounds terrible. But do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm sorry, you don't have enough credits for this one, madam.
yeah, it was almost that. Like, like if I was gonna, if
You don't get the full works.
I wasn't like holding onto my swing card virginity like it was a gift to be given to the right person. But it certainly felt like if we were going to do that for a first time with somebody, we should have a real connection with them, not just be someone we were testing the waters with.
Yeah.
Does that, I know that sounds terribly stuck up, but
Well, that's just the way we thought at the time. And again, this is just another example of how we've probably progressed and advanced with a better thought process and a better understanding, I think, of what we do and how we do it, rather than, oh, we've got to stick rigidly to these rules because for some reason we think they're right.
So what's changed? What are the rules now?
The rules now, there are still some rules.
There's no rules. Where I'm going, I don't need rules.
I say there's rules. There are. We wouldn't have sex with other people.
I have sex with other people all the time.
Hang on a
okay.
minute.
All right, okay.
You cool your jets there.
All right.
We are happy to go and kiss other people out of eyesight of each other now.
Yep.
And that took a while to get to that point.
I think so, yeah.
Unbelievably. And that seems to be a very easy thing to have navigated, but for some reason we couldn't.
It's made going to work so much simpler.
We were so bent out of shape over it. We just could not seem to get our heads around the fact that we could do this without actually having some stupid argument.
Whilst the majority of that is gone, there is still a dig.
There is still
a dig,
and it doesn't need to be there because it's really puerile.
Yes, it is really puerile.
So why is it still there?
I don't know why. If you tell me,
I don't have it.
Yes, you absolutely.
What?
Yeah, what?
Don't.
You really do.
I don't.
Yes, you do.
No.
All right. Okay. Fine.
We're both okay with this, right?
Yeah, we are absolutely fine with
Well,
it.
there you go then.
By we, I meant me.
Oh my God. So full of shit.
I think it's the fact that we can't help go, oh yeah, been busy, have we? And it's not a dig.
No, it's
but
not.
But it skates close to the dig line. It's like peering over the edge and going, Hey, what are you doing? Hey, Ezekiel.
Fuck you, Ezekiel.
Fuck your mum.
So there's that. We finally got to a point where we can at least let that one go.
Okay, yeah.
However, what we don't do is wander off separately at an event, party, club and have sex with other people without there being some extremely good conversation between us. And even then we wouldn't do that.
No.
It's a kind of, we're in it together. We don't go off in those events and play separately.
No.
So that's still established rule. Now, what we have done is dabbled in the solo dating.
Yeah.
But again, that's different to being in the same venue and going off and having sex with other people without telling each other.
True.
So the solo dating...
Well, you know about the solo dates. That's
do. The solo dating is building in layers of protection from my view, because we're having a conversation in advance. We're setting out how we feel. We're laying it all out and saying, this is what I expect and this is what I don't want to see and this is what I don't mind. And we're going away with those, very, very good structured guidelines in place out of respect for each other. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think separating and playing separately without each other's check-in in a venue is probably quite dangerous.
Yeah, I think that the chances of one like turning the corner and seeing one of us playing without knowing that that's going to happen will probably piss the other one off quite substantially.
And we wouldn't do that. So that's still a rule that has evolved, but certainly not developed beyond that. Mm-hmm. But no anal rule that we absolutely had from the beginning. Going to smash
that one in.
Do not be vulgar. Keep your anal backdoor smashing to yourself, thank you. Again, okay, there have been occasions where that has flexed a little because we've been in scenarios where some anal has happened for light DP.
Yeah.
And anyway, but the point is, it's certainly not something that we would go, yeah, everything's fine, including that.
So written permission only then?
No, it's still very much, I think, no.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I think, I was thinking about this the other day, I think it's because I know it will set off a train of thought in my head that I don't really like the feel of.
Right, what don't you like the feel of? Anal?
I just don't like the thought of you having anal with someone.
Okay.
But that's really all there is to it. And because I don't like the thought of it, I know that if it was to happen, it would actually not make me feel very happy.
Oh, okay.
And because it doesn't give me a good feeling, and I don't want no quips from you saying it gives me a good feeling. Because it doesn't appeal to me, the idea of you doing it, it just doesn't even seem worth pursuing right now if it's just going to set off another negative thought process. There's plenty of other nice things we could do without having to visit something which I know currently is not making me feel great.
I think that the funny thing about this conversation is that it's never actually come up in a play situation, ever.
No, I think someone has asked you
One
once.
person, which was about 6 years ago.
I know that, but it's still a good common practice, I think, to revisit this now and then and go, this is still the thing.
No, that's fair.
I'm not saying that's set in stone forever. When I'm 70, knock yourself out. You can go and have anal with anyone.
Thanks, wife.
No, I'm adult enough to think we can review our own rules occasionally and think, is this still working? Is this still sensible? And can we flex something or make it more effective for us?
Yeah.
Currently, don't want to go there.
Okay.
That's it.
What other rules are there and boundaries?
Do we have any others? Oh, well, I was going to say in the beginning, we were very rigid about not having separate chats with people. By chats, I mean, WhatsApp, messenger messages, where we couldn't see each other's conversations. We tend to go in with a group approach and share messages so that we are, there's visibility of what we're all talking about. And that way you don't have those, what are they talking about? I feel like it's clandestine. I think now there are some separate chats.
Yeah.
I think you have way more than I do. This is not a pissing contest.
No,
I'm simply saying I think you do.
I think there's two.
Because you chat more than I do,
probably. There's two, I think. But also the difficulty is, I suppose, was where I managed the chat groups. Mm-hmm. On the Discord, for example, when people will message.
Yeah,
and that's true.
Completely. I understand that.
But I'm also very cognizant that it doesn't, that it shouldn't turn into like saying hello and hey, how is it going for 5 minutes?
Nothing wrong with
different
that.
to checking in every day, and that's where I kind of understand the line to be.
There are now, and to be fair, now 8 years on, there are some, not many. We probably have just a couple each. I think, as I said, I think you do have more, but I think I'm quite hopeful that in the event that we both said to each other, you know what, I feel a bit uneasy about everything. and can we just check in on each other and see what's being said today? Just give me a summary. I just want to understand what the level of conversation is sometimes. It's not a checking up thing. It's more of a, you just sometimes want to reassure yourself that there's nothing going on that you don't want to be going on.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get that. And I think we both do that, and both.
Yeah.
And generally we volunteer information, I think. It's tricky if there's stuff going on with like planning of events and that sort of stuff, because there's just so much that happens. But
totally.
most of the time, I think
it's more just protection of, in the event that you think someone's getting too close to someone else. It hasn't happened to us, but if it did, it's probably good to be upfront and say, hey, you can see with this, but it's fine.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
That's a rule that's changed.
Yeah.
I think in terms of where we were 8 years ago
How's
to where we are
our
now.
attitude changed though, and our kind of the way we approach things?
The way we approach meeting
Are we a bit
people.
more? Yeah. Are we a bit more laissez-faire? Are we a bit more structured? Because I think like the meeting people as like other couples or small groups, we're much more confident and not more effective. That sounds like business speak. Like a lot better at sort of going into these environments. I still think, and this is my constant bugbear, as you'll know, that when it comes to things like socials or going to clubs where we are not hosting, we tend to be a little bit more reserved. I think that's just natural. And we tend not to speak to other people who aren't someone that we've already met or are aware of. We're not very good at all still at going, hey, I'm Mr. H and this is Mrs. H. And how's it going? We think you're smashing, or whatever it might be. This is probably why we don't do it. Lovely blouse.
God, yeah, let's not go in with that.
Yeah.
Or let's try it next time.
She loves a lady with hair on her cheeks, gives her something to hang on to. Woof. We don't do that. We're not.
God.
Well, woof. We're not very good at that. Getting out there and being part of it. In fact, our default has always been that if we can sit in a corner with either friends or by ourselves and just look at the scene, then we're broadly very happy.
I'm normally in my comfort zone when people are already there that I know that I like talking to, and that's my default of, oh, hey, you're here, and immediately you end up going to talk to each other because it's like, oh, cool, we're all here. And then that becomes very quickly a safety zone.
Yeah.
But
once you're in that safety zone, you don't need to move. Whereas I want to get up and speak to people. And this is like, when we go on holiday, right? You want to sit by the pool. I want to go and do stuff. Yeah. Sitting by the pool is great. But if I have to do 7 days of that, I will fucking murder someone. So for me, I like to get out and I'm not saying that I want to be an absolute social butterfly, but there is an in-between bit where we both go and do that together. Now, we went to social recently. You pretty much stayed where you were with friends, and I went around a bit and chatted to some people.
I probably did less chatting than you.
Yes.
I did chat to some though.
But you mostly chatted to people we know.
I mostly chatted to people I know.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying that I went out and introduced myself to loads of people, but I certainly did more of that. And I think that's still not a weakness perhaps, but something where I think we could do better.
Okay.
I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to chat with you first. So I think, we've kind of got better at getting out there. In terms of dealing with messages and stuff, it's still very much me. That's not really changed in terms of I know, in terms of the podcast, all that stuff.
I have no defense
outside of the TikTok, of which you've done some.
Don't want to bombard people.
No, that's no way.
With mediocrity.
You can strive for mediocrity, dear. If you try really hard and keep posting, one day you'll be mediocre at best.
Oh, I can only hope.
I dream of mediocrity. So I think there is more we can do in terms of sharing this experience, but I know that it's not your natural approach to do it. So
I don't know you will find the time.
But you find time in the evening when you're sat there, instead of playing Candy Crush, you respond to people.
I've been dealing with a million people every day.
Yes, I know you have been, but I do as well. But this is the thing. And I think this is, that's not changed. That it's still very much me helming it, strangely driving it for something that you brought up, you started in the first place.
That's you, babe.
I know. I just, kudos to you for engineering me doing this, which is some sort of backwards thinking shenanigans.
Part of my master plan.
Yeah, excellent. It's one of my
reverse psychology
from Sector 7G.
All right, so we're better at the socialising in that we probably know way more people now, and we're very good at socialising with the people that we know.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of our attitude, I think we've definitely become more mature with our approach to what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
And morally what feels good, and where we see things that aren't good, we call them out, and we stay away from drama and things like that.
Yeah,
so I think
agree.
our approach is generally quite wholesome, because we want it to be done ethically, and we want to do the right thing, and we want to make sure that people are safe, and we want people to take care of their mental health, and in situations. So I think we're probably way more adept now at controlling situations, which previously we might have gone, fuck, what do we do now?
Yeah, and I think with language and LGBTQ plus stuff, I
Yeah.
think by the nature of part of our work, but also just being a bit older and having experienced more of the world
Educating ourselves,
and educated ourselves. I think there's definitely a bit of that. And I think if you look back, I mean, the podcast has been running for like 6 years or so. So that definitely was a huge changing point, and that's made our communication between ourselves so much better, because we force ourselves to talk to each other. We want to, obviously.
Oh, obviously.
But this sitting down in front of a microphone gives you the impetus to sort of bring up stuff and make sure that you talk it through. And I also think that the events, and then the events have been going nearly 4 years, I think, and albeit socials and club things, and more recently like takeovers and that sort of stuff. I think that's made us much more aware of some of the challenges that exist out there. And I know, us taking over clubs and arranging events and promoting them gets on some people's wicks. I understand that. But I think part of the reason why we started doing them is because, I said, when we started, there were no socials. Now there's like 20, like every single
loads.
month,
And that's
certainly
great,
near us, which is great. It means, and some of them we absolutely want to go to, and we do. Some of them are not for us, but that's the reality. There is a variety of choices. And I think that's fantastic, because there's more stuff for you to go to. So if you're starting out, it's really easy to find these things that
100%.
hopefully that near you. Near us, there's bloody tons of the things now. And, in a way, it's like, we've got to not struggle, but we've got to make sure our voice is heard, so that our 1 or 2 things that we do a year are heard. And we do them because, when we started, that they didn't exist. And, we've got listeners like yourselves, gentle listener, that want to come along to our events and sort of ask us questions and be part of that. But also that we've got an established community that we've worked really hard to create, where people can come along and know what to expect from our things,
And
be
it's
it a
nice to
social
bring
or
people together as well, that
I love
have
that.
made friends over the years at different events, and it's lovely to all come back together and socialise again.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's still the case.
The other thing I kind of did want to touch upon is how the scene has changed in the last 8 years, because it's been, there's been some substantial changes. And, when we initially started, as I said, there was like one social that was near us. There was, I think the nearest club was and still remains to be probably
A couple of hours away.
I think there is like a spa thing in Untamed or whatever it is in Bournemouth, which we still haven't been to. But I think nearest club that we wanted to check out was a couple of hours away. So that hasn't changed. But we have been much more active in going to those clubs. If you look at the sites and stuff, that landscape has changed dramatically over the years. I mean, Killing Kittens was kind of around, or We Are X, as it's now known.
Concept days, and it was not as big, and it certainly has changed over time.
Yeah, Fab was around. That's not changed a jot. If anything, it's just got worse.
There is way more sites now.
There wasn't any Swing Hub. That's come over in recent times. There was there's been some of the European ones like SDC and SLS or whatever, and there's probably been Spicy Match running around about the same time. But I don't think we really encountered it until a couple of years ago. And sort of all these different things have cropped up. There's been sites that have come and gone.
Yeah, that's true. They don't all make it.
They really don't.
And varieties of reasons.
I remember a couple of years ago we reviewed like 20 of the fuckers in one go, and then
half of them are gone now. In fact, most of them probably have gone.
Have been taken out onto the moors and left there. So there's been a significant change in the landscape of what's available, but there's also a much younger crowd coming in.
Do you think clubs are now more open to accepting different relationship dynamics than they were 8 years ago?
I think some are and some are not. And I think that's still, there's still a changing process with clubs. And some of them have been around for like absolute donkeys. They're very set in their ways and they can't adapt to like the LGBTQ plus world. That
recognise same-sex couples.
Yeah, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating. And when we see that, we try and call it out. I think some clubs are pretty good and they're quite adept at that. And some clubs have built their like absolute foundation on it.
Yeah.
But there's still some challenges out there that hasn't changed significantly. In terms of the sites, there's also a lot more stuff like, Grindr,
Tinder,
Field.
Field. There's tons,
There's
aren't there?
tons of things that have, which many were around 8 years ago, but some of them weren't, and they've become, much more popular, and people have used them successfully to sort of aid their ethical non-monogamy journey. But when we started, it was like where do we go? What is it? And the only thing that we could find that was of any real use was fab, which is a terrifying statement to make, really, when you think about fab and the way it's run and the way it's policed and all this sort of stuff. And we've still never had 8 years on since trying to reach them or whatever, we still never had an actual email back from someone.
Do you think the spate of media coverage, TV shows that have cropped up over the last few years, like the open house, the documentaries that we did,
I think
news story, swing-a-thon, that kind, all these kind of things that attract media coverage, do you think they have changed the landscape at all?
It's a game of two halves, I think. I think the amount of coverage, even stuff like the swing comic or whatever it was, the graphic novel that's still ongoing, or series, I think, open house, the documentaries, they are helping to normalise it, but we've got a fucking long way before average Joe soaps kind of see it that way. I mean, to be fair, as we create this, there's a whole series of protests going on across our country.
Sadly, yes.
Where, some people are standing up for all sorts of nonsense. And thankfully, there's a bunch of really good people that are standing against them. But actually, if you think about that mentality.
The angry mob, mental mob.
Yeah, the angry mental mob who are against people of different cultures, different skin colour, someone that sounds different, all this sort of stuff. And then you look at something like where Swing-a-thon is in the press and you read the comments. We are not in a space yet where it's...
Not.
I'm not sure you could say that it's unsafe for most people. I think most people are probably safe with it.
But they're not safe from persecution,
No.
though. Verbally ranting, onslaughts, and people coming up with comments like, STD Island, and...
Yeah.
Bet there's an HIV tent. And just that uneducated, as say, rent-a-mob mentality again, that just decides that because you are a community of, people who all do one thing, you all must absolutely be swarming with STDs, for example.
And it's difficult because if you read that and you're part of this lifestyle, looking to be part of it, it's very disheartening. And I think when I sort of go through that stuff, every now and then there's someone that goes, "Oh, it's not for me," but great for them.
Yeah,
that's such a fucking win. And it's sad to say that that's a win, but actually that's someone that's just like, hey, live your best life, do whatever, as long as I'm not impacted by it.
Right.
I don't give no shits. And actually that's a huge leap forward from where I think we might have been 10 years ago. And I think there is a change. I think the change is coming actually from a much younger generation. The difficulty is as well, though, is that with that younger generation, there seems to be the influx and influence of a lot of content creators. Now, I say this as, we are a content creator in that we produce a podcast, right? Podcast. But lots of the people that are kind of out there in the media are also OnlyFans producers, amongst other, whatever version of OnlyFans there is, cam girls, whatever. That's absolutely fine. It's a very valid career. It's great that we've got these people that can do this stuff, and great that people can be sex workers and help the community, all this good stuff. However, to the general public, they have a difficulty seeing past the fact that people are sex workers effectively. And I think there is much of the younger crowd that are coming from that space see the opportunity to not only have a good time as swingers, but also make money from the content creation. Now, this is a massive sweeping generalization, and it's probably not that many, but there's some very visible ones out there. And I think that can help the situation with ethical non-monogamy, in that it does give a spotlight, it does give visibility, it does give stories. But I do think some of those stories are very questionable as to how people see the ethics involved. Now, I'm not judging those ethics, but it does come across like it's really like people are just doing it for the money.
Yeah,
and I think
to drive revenue, and it's commodity driven, isn't it?
I think. And I've noticed huge swathes of the ethical non-monogamy community getting really pissed off with all of these content. The podcasters included, and that's fair. If you don't like podcasts, then I don't know what you're doing listening to this, but thanks for sticking around so far. Well done. 10 bed hopper points to you. But the people that, that are on Reddit and on Twitter or whatever are very much, it's all these content creators that come to events and they're only going to create content. They're not going to have authentic interactions with real people. And it means that the value you used to place perhaps on going to an event and striking up a real connection and having some sexy fun, it means you also have in the back of your mind, are they doing this to create content? Why are they here? What is their purpose of this? And if people sort of, and most people I think are upfront about the fact they're content creators, but in the back of your head, you can't help but have that there. So I think, it's a double-edged sword, as with most things. I think it's given such a spotlight to the Daily Mirror stories of I've earned £60,000 a month and I'm a swinger, but I create videos or whatever with all the men I fuck. That stuff, it's giving, it's shining a spotlight and normalizing it, but it's not normalizing it in a great wholesome way, I think. And I think if that was a, representative percentage, those stories of the amount of people that do OnlyFans wouldn't be a problem. But it tends to be those ones, because they're face out and because they're able to talk about it in the media, that drives some of the really negative perceptions of the lifestyle stuff. Like if you look at Open House, right?
Yeah.
Last couple of seasons, I have a sneaking suspicion that a good chunk of them are content creators.
Well, we know they are.
Well, not all of them.
Not all of them.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But what that does is it, when you look at the lifestyle as a microcosm and you kind of zoom in on that, the representation that is in the media suggests that lots of the people who are swinging are people who are creating content. And that's a dangerous thing for the public to think, because that doesn't show a true representation. Also, Open House has a number of faults, particularly the first season that we've talked about before. But actually, when you look at it from a wider perspective, are there a bunch of races represented? Are there a bunch of body sizes and shapes and sexualities and so on and forth represented? And I'm not sure that it does. But to be fair, in the current climate, is it safe to be represented? I don't know.
No,
right?
That
was a long monologue. Apologies.
Likewise, when we sort of think back to the first documentary, again, talking about the lens through which it was portrayed, it was very much a link between swingers being dysfunctional in some way, and you're probably only a swinger because there's some dysfunction that exists in your relationship that means you have to do this to keep it going, and it's very much a band-aid in you're doing it because your relationship is broken in some way, or that you've got some psychological issues or mental health issues. And swinging was portrayed, I think, through that lens unfairly, because like you say, it is just a very small snapshot of what reality is.
In trying to humanise it in that first documentary, and this is the Channel 4 one, I think if you look up Channel 4 and swingers on YouTube, you'll find it. There was they tried to humanise the people, and they have real human backgrounds and they've got real emotions.
But aren't they also sad?
Yes, and that was the issue, I think, in that everyone was like a bit broken.
It was intrinsically bleak, I think, because it really did give you a slice of the normality that actually wasn't representative of what we see,
and the fun and the joy and the where was I don't know, like Sarah the dog walker, and during the day she walks 20 dogs and then she gets home and then she just wants to chill out, but it's like but she's really excited because she's going to a party tonight. Isn't that fun? It's not like we've realized that she's a human and she has a job and but she gets tired or whatever. That's fine. But also, where's the excitement? She gets to meet these amazing people and she gets to experience the connection and the networking and all the fun stuff and the sexy times. Yeah.
That's not what they want to portray, though, is it? Because
no, I know.
That's not the bit that sensationalizes things.
I know, and I get it. Sex sells. It does. It really does. And we are in a space where, we are not represented properly, but we are starting to be represented. So it's like, I don't want to take that away from the fact, because, when we started, it was really seedy, awful documentaries. And now it's just slightly less seedy, like more realistic, but it still has to sell. But, the fact that Open House exists on the television is a mile away from the dodgy swingers documentary we watched where they were wearing fucking owl masks.
No, I agree. I do agree. And at least, more and more mainstream media is covering good topics like, alternative relationships and, polyamory and, even things like the sex education show, amazing that they're covering such a broad range of different things in all aspects of sexuality, which puts it all under the microscope for a good reason. So I like to think that it is getting better.
Yeah, I think, when it becomes a thing, like a character in a TV show happens to be ethically non-monogamous and it has nothing to do with the plot and is just a thing, then you're in the right space, I think.
Yeah,
and
exactly
where
that.
no one makes a big deal about it. But, I think we've got a while to go before we'd get to that space.
I've got a question for you.
All right, go on then.
So we've obviously covered all the bits about how we think the scene has changed and the landscape has changed. Do you think, so going back to us now and how we are different 8 years on, do you still get nervous when we go and have a meet with people or before we have some kind of sexual encounter with people we haven't before?
I think it depends on the meet and the people.
Okay.
I think there is still a nervous excitement. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had a sexy meet this week.
This meet.
Blah, 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 blah. So we had a sexy meet this week and there was a level of excitement. I think because of the people, I felt very chilled because they were very good at putting us at ease, very good at being really chilled out folks. So the excitement was about the experience that was to come, but I wasn't nervous about being in their presence.
8 years ago, you would have been nervous, right?
Yeah, I would have been absolutely nervous. So there's definite, we've gone from meeting people to playing with them straight away before. That's happened in more recent years. It's not our standard approach, absolutely not.
Not because we're slutting it around, but because we're just more adept at managing our emotion, maybe.
Well, and because we're slutting it around, I guess, a bit. But I think, we have got better at managing that stuff. And I think there is an excitement, and that's not gone away. There is an excitement about going to a club, and we went to a club recently, and that was like, oh, this is quite exciting. But at the same point, I'm not like nervously like shitting myself or running to the bathroom every 2 minutes, going, this is
terrible, but also brilliant.
Yeah, I think there's less of that. I'm more concentrated on the experience itself. But I think also we have, so many wonderful friends and extended family really with this that make these experiences so much more fun and exciting for us rather than being a nervous thing. And, who'd have thought 8 years ago we'd have relationships that are, okay, they're not poly relationships, but they're not that far away from them. They're somewhere in that grey, swinger plus, poly light or whatever space. That would have terrified us. That would have killed us over. Whereas now it's like if we don't see certain people after a few weeks, we get fucking grumpy. And that's, that speaks volumes of the people that we've met, but also of the way that we handle our emotions around that. So for me, I think that, we definitely we've become more adept at dealing with situations and also better at handling things on the fly. I think, as we had so much fuck up for us at the start, there's little that will surprise us or little that will throw us. Or at least, we've experienced something like it and we're able to deal with it and kind of handle it with hopefully grace and under pressure.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest changes now, 8 years on, is that we are
much older,
dabbling in solo dating.
Oh, I was just going to say that we're so much fucking older now.
We are older, yeah.
Yeah, you tell me every single day how old you are.
Today.
Like too little butter spread over too much bread.
I don't say that, old man. So it was the solo dating thing.
Okay.
That's obviously new.
That is, that's very brand spanking new. And
why have we decided to now try this?
I think it's because you threw your toys out of the pram about not being able to play with a lady. I think that's where it came from initially, but...
I love how you phrase it like that. Let's put the toys back in the pram.
But I think, there was a moment where it was really clear that you wanted to play with a lady. That didn't happen for a variety of reasons. And
so this seems a more sensible approach.
This seems a sensible approach, but also an interesting test of how we feel about things. And I think, we're still in the test and develop phase. It's still a beta. It's not been moved to an alpha build yet because it's not our standard practice.
No, of course it's not.
And I think, outside of the people that we've had those solo dates with, then I don't think we'd be quite so fluent.
Okay.
I
agree.
I don't think we would.
We haven't got to that point where that's a thing that we want to try.
Well,
we're sticking with people we know that we trust, and that's where we feel safe.
And I think that's where, it's been comfortable, but, we're yet to really test some waters. And I think, we may test them and not like it. We may test it and really like it. I don't know. I'd be surprised if we really like it. But I think the fact that we have tried it at all, again, when we started this journey, we didn't think we'd ever play with a single guy, and we have done it once.
Twice.
Twice?
Twice.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't count the second time.
Wow.
It doesn't count at all.
Kind of does.
All right.
A little bit.
Fine. But my point stands in that.
Excellent.
But in that, we didn't think that was ever going to be on the cards. In fact,
No,
couples
you're
weren't
right.
ever going to be on the
No.
cards. So
And here we are.
and
moved on.
things have significantly changed and evolved over the years. So my final thought is this, dear.
All right, Jerry Springer.
Yes, my Hopper's final moment or whatever it is.
Oh my God. Where are you going?
Where am I going? Yeah, we're closing this all now, as I said at the beginning. No, what I'd like to know is so, we've talked a lot about starting out. We've talked a lot about how things have evolved, how the scene has changed. What advice would you give? What one bit of advice would you give to someone that's just about to start? They've picked up this podcast. They've listened to us warble on for an hour or so. And, you kind of got to give them one little tip to take with them that's going to change their lives. What is it?
I'm not sure I can go on with changing lives. That's a really tall order. But
It can't be communicate, because everyone fucking says communicate.
No, I'm not going to say communicate. No, I'm actually going to be quite simple here. Let's just apply the law of Occam's razor here and simplify things so that, generally speaking, keep it as simple as you can without bringing loads of different complicated rules and things and worries into it. And keep in mind, why are you doing this? Is it because you want to have some fun? Is it because you want to enhance your relationship? Is it purely because you just want to experience something new as a couple? And keep in mind that there is just this one thing that you can get from this, which is some fun as a couple together, and it might bring you closer together. So my advice is keep it simple.
Good advice.
Thank you.
Good advice. My advice is come to one of our come to one of our events. We'll treat you fine. I got some promotion in. Yay! Social in October.
Yeah. Really?
Woo.
Oh.
Anyway, I want to say a huge thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
Oh, all right.
I turned up again, right?
You did turn up again. It's always a win when you turn up. Do you want to do your thing?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I do. Well, thank you for hopping into our bed.
Understand you have a joke. What is your joke, wife?
Bear with me.
I'm not promising have your joke to hand?
Well, you know what? I'm not saying the joke's not going to be good, because I think the quality of a joke is great.
Or will it wreck my life?
The delivery of said joke, actually questionable, because it's me. Read?
Okay, let's.
So with that caveat firmly in your minds, the delivery of a joke is going to spoil the quality of the original joke.
All right, go for it. Do it.
All right. Now, let's have a look.
Do you need your reading glasses?
No, I've got the one you get. I'm just finding it because it's disappeared.
What?
I had it already.
Oh, come on.
I'm ready. All right, I've got it.
All right.
It's here.
Where is it? Say it now.
It's coming now.
So you don't have it?
All right, you know who it is.
All right.
I just entered a blindfolding wanking contest. I didn't win. In fact, I don't know where I came.
I love how you're laughing at that. That's awful. That's terrible.
Don't blame me for the quality of a joke. You asked for a joke. You got the joke.
It wasn't worth 20 scrolling pages that you went to get there.
I had it there and then it disappeared.